Hi, Ghassan. Now, you are with us here at the Research Center for Material Culture, which is our research institute within the Tropa Museum, Museum Volkkunde, and the African Museum. And now, recently, we've taken on a new museum, the World Museum in Rotterdam. Now, as museum institutions, what we call ethnographic museums, anthropology museums, we've been struggling for the last 30 or so years with critique of our practices of collecting, or relationships to the colonial project, or or forms of representation. And it seems impossible for museums to escape this idea that there are old colonial structures that cannot be decolonized. Now, anthropology as a discipline, the discipline which emerged in the relationship to our museums, or a discipline from which we emerged, has in some ways been a decolonization project. Could you describe a little bit what anthropology has done or has been doing to change? And what do you think might be the possibility for our museums to change, or are we hopeless?
A big question.
Yeah, it's a small question.
And this, of course, I have at least 3 hours to reply.
Yeah, exactly. 3 hours.
Well, first of all, I think I personally am a bit ambivalent about the notion of decolonizing the museum or decolonizing anthropology. Mm-hmm. To the extent that I think that colonialism is still with us. And as my late friend Patrick Wolf said, colonialism is a structure, it's not an event. And the idea between colonialism as a structure, colonialism as an event, is the difference between thinking that colonialism is something that happened in the past and we're still dealing with its effects today. And so decolonization becomes the idea of how do we get rid of the effects of colonialism on things that we are using today. But this effect happened in the past when colonialism happened.
Yeah.
But if we think that colonialism is a structure which is continuously renewing itself, and it's still with us in a variety of forms, then to me the idea of decolonizing anthropology or decolonizing the museum almost sometimes, I'm not saying necessarily has to mean this, but it can mean kind of like thinking, okay, how am I going to remove an institution from the structure of society? Because society is colonial. So why should the aim in a colonial society to decolonize the museum or decolonize anthropology? It seems to me that the aim should be, in what way can a museum or in what way can anthropology help the forces of decolonization? Not in what way they decolonize, as if, okay, we decolonize the museum, now whoever's still colonized can go and look after themselves.
Okay, yeah.
And so there's an element of that, if that's what people mean by decolonization. So in a sense, yeah, I prefer the idea of in what way the museum can be weaponized in the struggle against colonialism, not in the way which way it can be decolonized. Mm-hmm. And notice, I don't think necessarily that there's a contradiction, it's just that that's one meaning where people can say, okay, we're going to decolonize. So, I think as far as what the processes of decolonization in anthropology that have been happening today, and a lot has been happening with regards to what people call post-colonialism, decolonialism, decolonization, decoloniality. Each one, it's almost become like the Trotskyist party, sort of like each one differs from the other. One little thing, and everybody thinks it's the most important thing in the world, the difference between. But I think, on the whole, in anthropology, the biggest and most important move has been the move from anthropology thinking itself that it is the only discipline which has been non-racist to the extent that it has been the only discipline which said, I'm going to take the other seriously. And I think that's true. That anthropology, throughout its history, is the discipline which says, you know, these people might look to you that what they are doing is totally weird and has no relation to religion, but I'm actually going to take them seriously, and I'm going to say what they are doing is religion, even if you don't think of them as monotheistic religion, but I'm going to take whatever they do, shamans, etc., seriously. Forms of economy, forms of kinship, etc. So I think taking the other seriously is the most positive thing that anthropology has done. And as everyone knows, this was made possible by colonialism. This is the contradiction, that the only way you could actually go to the other in this superior mode, let me know you, kind of like, was because anthropology was part and parcel of the colonial structure. But I think it's very crucial not to kind of like throw everything out and just kind of like say anthropology is the product of colonialism. No, okay, it is the product of colonialism, but it is also the product of the first Western people who really said, I'm going to take otherness seriously. And I'd like to retain this idea that anthropology is the discipline that takes otherness seriously. But the most important shift that has happened today is this, is that from thinking religions, plurality of religions, plurality of modes of economic exchange, plurality of forms of kinship, that is, from thinking that anthropology's role is to think otherness, it has increasingly shifted towards how can it think in another way. That's very crucial, because the first step has been that anthropologists always used to say, we are not racist because we are interested in other cultures. But they never questioned the verb interested as an adjective or as a verb. What does it mean to be interested? And how are you interested? And they were always interested in a Western way, even though they were interested in other cultures. And today, the anthropologist's main task is to say, well, it's very good to go to the shaman and say, my Western thought is capable of taking you seriously and analyzing you. Are you willing to think the possibility that shamanic thought can analyze you? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer about the other being the object of research, but being that which you think with. And that, to me, today, in this discipline, the discipline what people call comparative cosmology, that is, I think, where the most avant-garde and most philosophical, if you like, aspect of decolonization is happening.
No, I wanted, there are several things that are nice. I mean, I want to come back to that last point at the end, because what you sketch out is a kind of hope for the discipline, a kind of future for the discipline, which is which is more hopeful than the more critical perspective that many people have as it is colonial, do away with it. So I want to end with that. But right now, there are two things that I'm interested in. You suggested, let us stop thinking about, or it might be more useful to think complexly, not necessarily about decolonize the museum, but how do we weaponize the museum to achieve a decolonial project in the present. But, which I agree with totally. Yet I struggle with wouldn't it be necessary? What is that weaponization process? Because one would have to suggest that one needs to do something to the structure, the way of working and knowing, to the discipline itself, to be able to ask new questions, right? So what do we need to do as museums for ourselves, or what did the discipline have to do to be able to open itself for weaponization rather than a reproduction of its early moments of
I mean, on reflection, maybe weaponization is a bad choice.
No, I like the word.
Only to the extent that you might be accused of terrorism.
That is true.
The word weaponization.
No,
what I'm aiming to say, obviously, is that to what extent can the museum take part in the struggle against colonialism?
Right,
sort of like that, and not simply think about decolonizing itself and not think about participating in the struggle in the rest of society. Because, you know, it's like the museum seems to me like the discipline itself of anthropology. It can think of its own autonomous sort of like dynamic and becomes, in a sense, totally wrapped up in its autonomous dynamic and forget that it is in and part of the rest of society.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yes, the question then, to me, comes to when someone visits a museum, does their mind work in a way that reproduces colonial structure of thought? Or do they leave the museum having disrupted this colonial structure of thought? If by saying the decolonized museum is the museum which allows the visitors to leave having disrupted colonial thought, then we can use decolonized museum. Why not?
Okay. Yeah.
And so the question is how do they use? Because obviously you can still go to an ethnology museum and think of the objects as acquisitions which reflect the greatness of the civilization that has acquired them.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, Western culture, not just Western culture, all cultures actually, have a long history of exhibitionism of others. And like the royal menagerie, it is about sort of like you visit the king and the king will tell you, I've got a giraffe and I've got a lion. And you don't say how great the giraffe is or how great the lion. You say how great the king is because they have the giraffe and the lion. And I think it is important not to create that effect in an ethnology museum whereby the visitor thinks, oh wow, amazing mask, oh wow, amazing board by these ethnic people, oh wow, and come out thinking, my country and its empire were great, which is possible.
But you continue, I mean, we were in a discussion, just for the watcher, we were in a discussion recently where a big critique was the critique of the other, this notion of the other. Now you speak about anthropology being one of the only first discipline to have a real investment interest in the other. But in the discussion we were at earlier, people were critiquing whether or not it is even possible to have another outside of a hierarchical structure. The other in the colonial project is always a hierarchical other. The West, scientific, the museum, looking at the primitive other. Now, what you're suggesting that you have a little more hope for our relationship with others. Can I get deep with that?
I mean, there's two things. One, there is, especially in multicultural societies, a notion of the facile other. The idea that by eating Thai food, you have crossed the other.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I mean, I'm happy with that, but I want to say that anthropology was the first one to think that there are forms of otherness that are not so easy to access.
Yeah.
That by accessing them, you become uncomfortable in your own thoughts. And to me, that's important in a general society which makes it so facile to think that I've done otherness. This tradition which says, well, let me tell you, it's a lot of hard work and lots of pain, and it's not so easy at all to actually enter the world of the other. I think, so I want to retain that difference between, but the other difference which we are speaking about is the difference between the other as an object of knowledge from which you have the power to know.
Yeah.
And to what extent the power to know the object, which has its source in colonial power, is disrupted or can be disrupted, if I take you right.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to challenge as well. And I think one of the issues that I was talking about is precisely that idea. I think, well, look, I don't think many serious anthropologists today would think that anybody in the world needs to know the Amazonian tribe, the indigenous tribe, the Papua New Guinea. This idea that the anthropologist is the person who goes and lives among the tribe so that we know about the tribe. I think a lot of anthropologists go today and try to know the tribe really well, but they do it in a process where they think knowing this tribe allows me a radical way of knowing myself. I don't think many anthropologists will be involved in the process of going to a Papua New Guinea trying to say, let me do a sociology of you guys, and I will tell you what your kinship is. I think today, first of all, there's a lot of sociologists, etc., even within the Western tradition, who are tribal background people who are capable of doing it. So there's no need for anybody to bother and spend all this time to adapt. So I think, I'm sure you will find some anthropologists who still stick to this, but I don't
I'm sure, yes.
but I am comfortable saying no serious anthropologists would think like this today.
But I want to pull out two things out of what you just said, which is nice, and I will move to the next one because you've already led to it. But I would want to take from you, one, that perhaps the museum should be that space where when people come in, it disrupts them. It is a disruption of their taken for grantedness. That this is how the world is and this is what it is. So it's a disruption to push them to think of the other as another way of being in the world. And then the second thing which you close with, which is the idea that to be able to do that, or to do that, is an attempt, or at least is an opening of an understanding of yourself. Right? It is not just the others over there, but it is about that relationship to self and other in an easy way. So it would be nice. I'm hoping that our museums will be places where people feel uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think any critical anthropology starting point is the idea. I would define it in a very meaningful form. The idea is that we can be other than what we are.
Right. Yeah.
We can be other than what we are, and that idea that we can be other than what we are is an idea that there's nothing natural about how we think ourselves at this very moment, and that there are various ways in which we can be that are hidden from us. And so you can see the museum as somewhere you visit to know, but you can also see it as a place you go to unknow.
Right, yes.
And I think that process of unknowing yourself, which is a difficult process, is one of the most radical decolonial promises of a museum.
Yeah.
That is, I look at objects, I look at things, and they make me think not about, oh, interesting tribe in the jungle. They make me think, oh, gosh, me, I'm so complex. There's so many parts of me that I don't understand. What I think I know is simple.
Yeah.
How can I settle for what I know about myself? I want to unsettle myself.
Yeah.
So this, as you said, unsettling, unknowing, yes.
Nice. Well, I'm probably going to put that up as our new motto, because that's what the research center tries to do. Right? It's a space for unsettling. But well, I want to move on a little bit to you hinted at the question of the multicultural society, and because a lot of your work has been animated by an interest in thinking the structures of what multicultural governance. How do we govern particular subjects in multicultural polities? That you might have done it in other ways, but your book White Nation was important for that thinking. Could you, in one sentence, just say what were you trying to achieve with White Nation?
One sentence?
Yes, one sentence. You don't have that much. It can be, you could do a long sentence with a lot of commas.
I think, well, first of all, you have to think about White Nation, about the fact that I, someone from Lebanese background, come and take white society as my object of research. So that already inverts modalities of knowledge in a way which is, you might call decolonizing. The most important thing for me is the idea that multicultural governance has always relied on itself as being a negating of racist governance. And I think the most important aspect of White Nation is that it shows how what is called multiculturalism is still in continuity with the history of racism. And I try to show the variety of ways in which it is so.
I mean, one of the things I found, and my colleague and I, Andrew Cumming, we used this in a edited body that we were working on, which was how in White Nation you articulated the ways in which, in this kind of multicultural governance, there is a prescription, a kind of prescription of how people are supposed to be, right? And there are some people who feel entitled to prescribe the being of the multicultural, right? So how people are supposed, which is, in many ways, museums, I find, are complicit in this. This is how a Surinamese person should be. This is what a migrant should do. This is how migrants should, what culture they should love, in that sense. Was the museum in the back of your mind, or any other kind of cultural institution in the back of your mind when you were developing this? Or does the museum now challenge you to think further about this?
Well, I think both. I think there's no doubt that there is a dimension of the museum which reproduces the basic structures of multicultural modes of existence, because the museum still, in the back of its imaginary, still the viewer is a white viewer.
Yes,
And it's a white viewer that comes and consumes forms of otherness and leaves the museum feeling enriched. And they leave the museum thinking, I'm great, because I'm so amazing that I'm capable of enjoying these incredible cultures from the world.
A little tidier, and a little this there, and a little that there.
And they might even leave the museum thinking how superior I am to these racists who don't know how to enjoy all the beautiful tribal stuff, and who might look at tribal stuff and say, why are you interested in such backward cultures, etc. And so, in that sense, the museum replicates the multicultural structure. And it replicates it in a way that viewer would never want to cage himself or herself and put themselves for show, rather than always thinking that they are the viewers and they are the ones. So that relation between enriching and enriched. My argument in White Nation is that it is permanent. Is that there's always the same people who think of themselves as the ones who are being enriched, and it's always the same people in the same cultures who are positioned in the role of enriching, as playing a function of making life better for the enriched.
But what do you say, because as the struggles over what the multicultural futures could be, I mean, we know, of course, from many government prime ministers or presidents, that the multicultural society is dead. Everybody proclaims it's dead over and over again. But as the polity changes, as there is whether or not it is the post-colonial, post-migrant change societies that are happening all over Europe right now, do you think that there's a shift in the relations between the enriched and the enriched? Is there a moment when that change can happen? And what would that look like in that futures, where it is not the white subject who is the enriched by the enriched?
Well, look, I mean, that's a complex question to the extent that there are very opposite forces that are at work in today's society.
Right.
Because on one hand, there has been a regression. When you used to say, well, the racists are the one who think tribal cultures are negative. The multicultural is the guy or the woman who thinks they're positive, but they still think they are the ones that have to perform a function. And you want to criticize multiculturalism precisely to make it go forward, etc. But what we have is, in fact, it's the guys who think that tribal stuff is negative who are now on the rise again, against the very simple multiculturalism. I mean, when I produced White Nation, it was with the hope of pushing multiculturalism further. And now, the multiculturalists are being overrun by the racists. So it is very hard to think without this trend of racists who are taking over again. But at the same time, there is the trend, which autonomously is also happening, of people who are pushing the multicultural towards a much more radical reevaluation. And I think it's important to push that, but not forget that the zombie races are on the rise at the same time as this happening. You know.
I want to do two things, and then we close it, because I think we've covered a few things. In the other book, which is very important to me, is altar politics, right? Where you develop this notion or think through the notion of the altar. And I wonder, what do you think is the utility of thinking the altar in relationship, for example, to the ante, for a museum like ours, a museum that has collections from all over the world, with cosmologies from all over the world? What might be the utility of thinking altar, and how might we use that as a part of our project?
Yes. Look, I think there's a long tradition of thinking utopia with lack of realism.
Yeah.
And so in this tradition, reality is one. And if you are a realist, you accept what there is. If you are not realist, you can think of alternatives.
Yeah.
And dream about them, imagine them, etc. And the realist will laugh at you. And you say, I don't care, I want to dream. But I think we have advanced in our analysis of the constitution of social reality enough to know that social reality is so multiple that a category does not capture all of it. Let's say society is capitalist. Before it used to be, okay, society is capitalist, and therefore if you want to think about non-capitalist, unfortunately, you dream about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think a lot of analysis show that when you say society is capitalist, you're actually missing a lot of other realities, not missing a lot of dreams. That even in the middle of what we are calling capitalism, there are actual realities that are non-capitalist. And so, to me, the notion of the outer is a new realism. A realism which accepts that alternative possibilities, the germs of them or their possibility are actually really happening.
Yeah. And
so the hope and positive thinking that comes with the altar is not about dreaming, it's about researching the existence of real possibilities that are hidden from you, which is a very important difference from the idea of imagining alternatives. It's about finding the alternatives. And everywhere you go, I think, you can see that people and the way people relate are way too complex to be captured by a single definition. You know, you can say instrumentalism rules. And you go to research, you will find instrumentalism, but then you will find love, you will find solidarity, you will find all kinds of things. Sometimes just hidden in a corner, sometimes another dimension, sometimes in a space on its own. And I think the crucial aspect of thinking the altar is precisely this idea, what I call minor realities. That instead of thinking about reality and ideas as alternatives, think of major dominant realities and minor realities. And so to what extent the museum can provide and support minor realities is, to me, an interesting question in terms of anthropologics.
And I want to close with that, with a particular thing, because we've already spoken about questions of hope, right? And very often nowadays when I use the word hope, people look at me and go, what are you talking about? But might it be so that it is that in that space of minor realities is that space of hope for other possible futures?
Yes.
So can the museum be a space where hope, and not a flippant,
Yes.
easy hope,
Yeah.
but a hope that demands a certain kind of work.
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, sometimes I stop thinking with hope because when I wrote my book, it was for hope. I used to get people calling me from television and I just say, can you talk to us in an interview and say, what about that hope?
Yes,
And so it was almost, people thought I was a priest delivering hope, you know, sort of like it's not a research issue. So there is always this danger when talking hope about this flippant. But I think the crucial thing about when you use hope, notice people use hope to define situations and to define subjectivities. So you say, for instance, the situation is hopeless, but I'm hopeful.
Right, yeah.
And I think by thinking out the politics with minor realities, I aim to always say there's always situations that are hopeful. It's not just you who needs to be hopeful when everything is crumbling.
Right.
So there must be some relation between the hope that reality produces and the subjective state of hopefulness. And I think that's where the crucial, real politics of hope to me happens.
Okay. Can stop right here. I want to thank you. It is what we've been thinking about, and perhaps we can, in our next conversation, we can engage with other parts of your work, which is your recent book, which deals with environmentalism and racism. I think that is also interesting, and the work that you're currently doing on questions of that, interesting to talk in our next conversation, should we have it. But I want to thank you, and let's go drink beer.
Thank you for a lovely conversation.